Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we're going to be looking at solving literal equations. Another way of saying this is we're going to be solving equations for a specific variable. So when we're looking at it, you'll see like in the directions, we get this we'll get this direction, solve for p, which means if you look at the equation, you'll have a p and a j. It means the letter that we want to get by itself, the variable we want to isolate, get alone, is going to be p. So if we look at this equation, p minus 5 equals j, just like before, we know that if we add 5 to both sides of this equation, add 5 to both sides, that we would get p by itself, because the negative 5 and this positive 5 would cancel, because that makes 0. And then what we'll do on the other side is we'll rewrite the equation that we're seeing. So we'll rewrite that expression. So we can't combine a j into 5 because we don't know the value of j. But what I can do is write j plus 5. And that's going to be the solution here. So what we're doing is we're following the directions, and the directions say solve for p. So I'm going to get p by itself, and in this example, that gives me j plus 5. Let's look at the red example. So it says solve for y, and that immediately tells me I want to get the letter y by itself. Now, if I am solving this equation, what I'm going to do is I know that from our other solving equations practice and my knowledge that I would divide by 2. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. I know that that's going to go 2 divided by 2 is 1y. And that leaves me with the other side, which is x divided by 2. So since I don't know the value of x, I'm just going to simply rewrite it as x divided by 2. And that's what the solution is going to be. Okay? Now, it doesn't get much more complicated than that. Sometimes there can be more than one step or multiple steps. But we're going to look at some that might seem more complicated to help you, and some that are based in the Delta Math program so that you can kind of see that format as well if you have to use it. So let's look at this problem. It says to solve the following equation for f. Be sure to take into account whether the letter is capitalized or not. That's something for those of you who are using the Delta Math software to take into consideration. It's going to call it wrong in this example if we use a lowercase f. But because the problem starts with an uppercase f. So let's go over here and we'll do this example. It says j equals gf. And we're going to use a capital F. Now, I want to get that F by itself. So what I'm going to have to do is I notice that this G is being multiplied by the F. And in that case, I know when something is being multiplied, the way to undo it would be to divide. So I'm going to divide by G on both sides. Okay? Now, that's going to give me J divided by G equals capital F. And it's really important that when you type in your answer, that you're aware that that J and that G have to be lowercase in order for it to be the correct answer. And you would type that in as J, find this slash on the keyboard, in G. That's how you're going to type that into there to get that fraction bar for those who are not as comfortable with the Delta Math software. Okay? Let's look at another example. D equals 3 times R times A. So D equals 3 times R and A. Now, what we know is in the directions it says solve the equation for A. So A is what we want to get by itself. Okay? Now we see that it's being multiplied by a 3 and being multiplied by an R. It's being multiplied by 3R. Now, what's interesting is with multiplication, we can divide by a large group. So we don't have to divide by r and then by 3. We can divide by 3r altogether. So I can divide by 3r, and that's going to cancel it over here to get that a by itself. So then we're going to get d over 3r equals a. Okay, and that's going to be the answer. Now, again, it's going to be really important that we use the capital R because that's what it was in the problem. If you use a lowercase r, the software is going to call it wrong. I'm stressing this because I don't want to see some of you have to do extra problems or lose points on problems because we're not using the right letter, even though we're doing the process right. Let's look at our final example. Our final example looks more complicated. Solve the equation for a, and it is parentheses h squared plus m times a equals 4n. Now, a lot of you might be going, whoa, there's exponents and parentheses. Mr. Gentaro, what the heck is this? Well, remember, we're looking at a multiplication that's happening right here. That h squared plus m is being multiplied by that a. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by h squared plus m in parentheses. And if we divide it on this side of the equation, we need to divide it over here. H squared plus m. Okay? Now what that does is just like before, it cancels out this because that's going to equal 1. Okay? So that is 1a that is left over. And now we just have to rewrite this 4n over h squared plus m because we can't combine it. There's no other math that we can do at this level. So that's what that solution is going to be. Now, there's some interesting things here. Again, we notice our capital and lowercase letters and make sure everything's aligned. But a lot of you might have questions as far as how do I type in an exponent? How do I type in an exponent in the Delta Math software? Well, you're going to press Shift 6. And that's going to give you this little symbol right here. In Delta Math, when you press Shift 6 to get this little symbol, it's going to make an exponent box. It's going to look like this when you're typing. So say you put in those parentheses, H, it's going to give you a little box that you just write the 2 in. And then you'll press space and you can write the plus M. And that's how you're going to write that using the Delta Math software. But the key is going to be Shift 6, and you're looking for this symbol, okay? It's no harder than that. For day 1, we're looking at these are some easy examples. I'll make a video for day 2 on solving multi-step literal equations, but today we're focusing on single step just so that we can get used to it, okay? So, looking at the time, it's going to be about a 3-minute video when we're all done, nice and short. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and thank you for joining me in this math lesson.